Welcome back to another episode of Mafia Family Ties. With me, I have Patrick Moran of the Talking Buffalo podcast. Thank you so much for joining me today.
It's an honor to be here. You are a man of many hats. You are also a man of many shirts.
Yeah,
How you doing, man? It's great to be here. This is cool.
Yeah, no, thanks so much. I'm just, honestly, I've been following your work for as long as I've been on social media. I think you were probably one of the first people I followed back in the day with your Buffalo Sports Daily. So I've loved just watching you progress and, you know, all that you've gone through that process and now your podcast. So I just thought it'd be fun to chat a little bit.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. 2009, you and I first crossed paths. Yeah. I remember you right off the bat as well. I had the blog, and I remember you from Twitter, one of the true OGs. Yeah. It's still fun now, but it was a lot more fun. It felt like back in those days. The group felt a lot more community oriented. Back in those days. But yeah, I do. I remember you way back from the start.
Yep. I remember your bio said, "I'm the publisher of Buffalo Sports Daily." Like right there in your Twitter bio. I was like, "Oh, this is the publisher of Buffalo Sports Daily. This is great."
It was fun. Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, good stuff. So, let's just jump into like the general Bills fandomness, and we'll get into some details about you and your journey and everything. But Bills fandom, what does it mean to you? You're a lifer, you know. Like, what are your thoughts on Bills fandom as a whole?
It meant a lot more to me over the past 4 or 5 years than I ever realized, and it took me moving away from Buffalo for 5 years to really, they say absence makes the heart grow fonder. And I felt that's the way Bills fandom went down with me. I was always a Bills fan. I grew up, man. I'm old, man. My first Bills memories are early 80s, and the Bills were actually good. And then they got into the mid 80s, and they were terrible for a stretch. But, I've been a Bills fan my whole life. But I feel like you kind of take things, whether it's sports or just life, sometimes for granted. And then when you leave and you kind of, you realize what you're missing. And the 5 years that I spent in Florida not too long ago really helped me connect back to Buffalo and realize how much I loved the city and how much I loved the team. And, a lot of the Bills fans, that's the biggest reason why I started a podcast to begin with when I went to Florida, because I was bored. Yeah. And I was homesick, and it kind of felt like my way to get back connected again to the Bills and to a lot of fans.
Yeah. Now you're back where you belong.
I guess. Yeah. I love Buffalo, man. I don't love this time of year so much.
It's hard to say that in February, right?
I'm very soft, man. I do not like to be cold. I openly admit it. I hibernate for a lot of the winter, and then I kind of come alive again in the spring. But yeah, this is where I belong. There's no question about it. And I feel like it kind of took going away and living somewhere else to realize how much I missed Buffalo.
Yeah. It's a special place. It's a little bit more special in the summer.
It's a lot more special in the summer. I'll take spring, too. We're getting to March, St. Patrick's Day season. From there on out,
weather starts to break,
that's
only like 2 more snowstorms left that you have to deal with. All right. So you've been a Bills fan since like the early 80s, earliest memories. You talked about those AFC East championships, beating the Dolphins, breaking that streak in the 70s and everything. So that's quite a gamut of time. Of players that you have seen play, all the way back to Joe Ferguson or whatever to where we are now. If you have to pick 1 or 2 favorite players for no other reason than just like they're your favorite dudes, like who do you got?
2 guys. Number 1 would be Joe Cribbs. Mm-hmm. That's when I first started becoming old enough. I knew of the Bills, but when I first got old enough to start following them in the early 80s, Joe Cribbs was my favorite player. He's a slick running back, and, I wanted to be Joe Cribbs. I never wanted to be Joe Ferguson. It's funny, when we were kids, it feels like a lost art. Kids don't play football, tag football in the street anymore, but when we did, I remember you would throw a bad pass at someone's ankles and you would yell Fergie when you threw them back when we were a kid. But Joe Cribbs was awesome. So he was my first favorite player, but I think my favorite Bills player of all time is probably Darryl Talley. Yeah. And it's just because I feel like Darryl Talley was born to be a Buffalo Bill. Yes. Like everything that Darryl Talley, not just the talent on the field, but just, the grit, the leadership that he had, fierce player, just a great person, a tough guy. You know what I mean? The elements never bothered him, unlike me. But he was like that leader of that era. Wasn't the best player, but he was the leader of that era. And he just, to me, symbolized what Buffalo is: blue collar, hardworking, probably more than any Buffalo Bill ever. So I've always loved him. He's a great guy too. I've had, been blessed to have a couple conversations with him through the years since he retired, obviously. But just a great guy, a great leader, and he just really symbolized to me what Buffalo is.
Yeah, heart and soul of the team, right?
Absolutely.
I remember it was probably, I don't know if it was 10 years ago. Maybe it was 10 years ago. He got into a big fight with Donte Whitner on Twitter. I'm sure you remember that. And we don't have to get into the details of all that. But
I do remember.
There was one thing he said in that exchange. He said to Donte, he goes, next time you're in the Bills Stadium, look up and you will never see your name there. And he was referring to the fact that he's on the Wall of Fame, Darryl Talley. And just you could feel the pride that he has
still does
to have been a Buffalo Bill.
Yeah,
that always struck me. That and all the snap! I can't believe he just said that night. But just that the pride that he had to be, and it makes you proud that he's proud to have been a member of your favorite team.
Two opposite ends of the spectrum. You can't get more opposite there between Darryl Talley and what he meant to the Bills and what he thought of Buffalo in this city and just the fans, as opposed to Donte Whitner. Back in those days, not one of my best friends.
I remember you getting into it with
I got it. He challenged me to a fight.
Oh my gosh, I forgot about that.
Yeah,
all right, we got to talk about that for a second.
It was all right. So it was I think it was 2011. It was Buffalo Sports Daily. I had a blog, and these players would always say they never read anything, and that's a lie. Trust me, most of them do to some extent, some more than others, but I wrote a column at the time that was critical of his play. And it wasn't over the top. It was just, he was not that good. I mean, he talked a lot, but he didn't really back it up. And it wasn't his fault that he was the 8th overall pick. I'll give him that. You know what I mean? He was a high first-round pick. He was an okay player. If he would have been a 3rd or 4th rounder, you'd be like, he's fine. But he was a top 10 pick and just never delivered on that. And I was kind of critical of him. And then on Twitter, out of the blue one day, he challenged me to a fight. He said something I don't remember, and then I snarked back at him. He said he would beat me up, or I said, I might not be able to beat you up, but I could probably run a 10-yard route on you or something, something like that. And then the next thing you know, he legitimately challenged me to a boxing match. He goes, let's make it for charity, called me a coward, all kinds of stuff like that. Never thinking in a million years I'd accept it. He's an athlete. He would kill me. Yeah. But I did, because I was going to have some fun with it.
Absolutely.
So that got picked up. I remember Pro Football Talk and some of these other national media outlets were posting about it. And then for fun, I actually had reached out to Baby Joe Macy, and he was going to train me. Yeah. Like we were going to do some montage training videos where there's going to be a parody, a joke,
Rocky,
you know what I mean?
Montage,
yeah. But I was going to be terrible at, any kind of thing he did. But Baby Joe was on board to do it. And then a couple of days later, his agent squashed it, or maybe the Bills organization squashed it. It never happened. Thank God, because he would have killed me. But anyway, Donte Whitner is just the polar opposite. Again, how he felt about this city and the fans and just his time here, as opposed to, like I said, a leader like Darryl Talley, who's still very much involved.
Absolutely.
With Buffalo today.
Yeah, no, I love that guy. So all right, so you've seen a lot over the 40 years now of Bills fandom. How have you seen things change with the fans since those early 80s and where we are now? And obviously social media plays a part in that. Sure. But like the overall, like what it means to be a Bills fan or the Bills fan experience, how have you seen that morph?
Social media does play a very big role. The Bills fandom was crazy in the 80s, and especially, in the late 80s, early 90s, during the Super Bowl run, fandom was just as high then as it is now. It's a little bit different now, in part because of social media, and it's easy to connect, and now you get to know people that you never would know in a million years otherwise, because you don't need to be from Buffalo. You don't need to be from the same neighborhood. It doesn't need to be somebody that you meet at a tailgate. You know what I mean? Because of Twitter and Facebook and stuff like that, you get to meet and connect with people from all around the world. I know you see a lot of people that come in from other countries. I got to meet a group from Scotland just this past year, and I partied with them at downtown at Resurgence, and it was I had one time of my life, honestly. It was a great time. So getting to connect with people is what's changed a lot now because of social media and just the the charitable part of Bills Mafia now, which obviously you have a very big role in. That's a big difference now compared to then. But the fandom has always been alive, even during the drought and even during the mid-'80s, although a lot of people won't, if you're old enough, you don't want to admit that you watched the Bills or you were a Bills fan and, during that time. But the fandom's always been there. It's just different now. There's a bigger light on it, as it should be.
Yeah, yeah. The NFL in general, I guess, is just everything is different now. It's bigger, brighter, everything. All right, so we talked about Buffalo Sports Daily a little bit. Let's jump back to that, your origin story in terms of your public persona. How did that start? What was the impetus for that? Like, what was your motivation to starting that? You said you were writing columns. I remember you would talk about local news and stuff. So
I was a wannabe.
Yeah.
I was a wannabe. I wanted to be a professional writer, but I didn't graduate from college. I didn't major in journalism at college, but I always felt like I was a good writer. And then an opportunity came, like during the blog era. I remember going back to, started right around 2006, Fox Sports had community blogs and stuff like that, and teams had some blogs, unofficial teams. Believe it or not, Tyler Dunn was a Syracuse. He was just getting ready to graduate from Syracuse, and he ran a Bills blog it was part of Scout.com, and I actually wrote under him. I just always had a passion for writing, even when I was a kid. I played sports. I was okay at them, nothing special, but when I was a kid, I used to always write. I wanted to be a writer, and it just never cut it in the real life happens, kids, just things happen in life, and you got to make a living. So that's what I did, but I never lost my desire. And I always did a lot of freelance stuff, worked for some local rags, back in those days. Community newspapers were a lot bigger than now because there really wasn't internet. But then the blogs kind of became a thing, and I started one in 2009, and I love it. And I miss it a little bit now, but it was a great time in my life because that's where I really made a lot of connections with a lot of not just fans, but people in media that I obviously still am connected to this day.
Now, I know you moved to Florida for a bit, and then you ended up moving back. How does that work in terms of the Buffalo Sports Daily timeline? And you said you launched your podcast in Florida. We'll get into that in a minute, but. How did that wind down, and how did you end up going to Florida and everything? I
lost the passion for writing. It became a chore, and at some point in life, you got to make a buck too. And it was a struggle to find the time to put the work in that I was putting in and not have much at all financial reward for it. So you got to make a living, you got to pay your bills and stuff like that. And it just stopped becoming fun. And it's at some point, I think this happens a lot with people, whether they have a blog or they have a podcast or show, whatever they might do. It can be tough at some point. You get burned out a little bit and you start to question if it's worth the time that you put in. And it got to that point for me with the blog. Like I said, just that and life things. Yeah. So eventually I ended it. I did a couple other things here and there, but nothing to that effect, nothing to that extent. And then I moved to Florida in 2016 and I got bored. Believe it or not, in Florida, I got bored somehow.
Well, you were in Sarasota, right?
Yeah, I was in Sarasota. And I remember you coming down once. And I don't remember where we met up, but we met up at some diner. Yeah. And you were on.
The food was fantastic. I remember that much.
Yeah, it was. Look, I'm not dissing Florida. There's a lot of great things to love about Florida for sure. Yeah, it was called Moranalytics podcast, actually. It wasn't even talking Buffalo.
Yes,
yeah, it was the Moranalytics podcast. It was wordplay on my last name. Brilliant. And I thought that was cool, but a lot of people didn't get it. Yeah. And it was an easy insult, too. Moranalytics or something like that when people didn't like the show. But yeah, I hooked up with you in Florida. You were down there for an event, and we met up. That was a lot of fun. That was before we did video or anything like that. Yeah, though. Yeah.
Well, yeah, now you're doing the whole video podcast and everything. So before we jump into that, what brought you back? I mean, we covered that a little bit, but coming back from Florida, what was that transition like? Because it felt like you just dived right back into Buffalo culture and
it was hard.
Everything.
It was hard because. So we moved to Florida in 2016, and we moved to Florida for two reasons. My wife had an opportunity she was getting transferred. I got a promotion, and her headquarters was actually in Sarasota. So that was half of it. And the other half was my son was a very good football player here in Buffalo. Little Loop one of the best players on every team. And Florida, Texas, they're hotbeds. And I wanted to see if he could stack up against football players in Florida, and the opportunity was there for that too. So that played a big role in it at the time. That was like kind of the complimentary part. We were probably going to Florida regardless because of my wife's job.
Yeah.
But his football future at the time, me being a sports dad who wanted to see his kid play at a high level, that had a lot to do with it. And again, I was there for about a year or so, and that's when I started what became Talking Buffalo, because I was bored and I was homesick, like I said. Grew it in Florida. And then in 2021, after Shane graduated from high school, he had a lot of football offers. And long story short, he was going to go to Clarion University, which is in Pennsylvania, about 3 hours or so away from Buffalo. I've never missed one of his games. Probably my biggest flex that I could have is from the time he was 5 years old through high school, 150 games. I never missed one game.
That's the biggest flex you can have.
It is. That's my proudest thing. Just like with him, when it comes to him personally, my proudest moments have always been nothing he ever did on the field or accomplished on the field. It would be senior year. He's at a school with over 2,000 students. There's one captain. There's one kid who goes to midfield for a coin toss every game, and he was that guy.
That's awesome.
His senior. So anyway, that was proud. But he settled on Clarion University, and we decided to move back at the time because I just wanted to be closer to him. And like I said, I was getting really, really homesick. So we all agreed to move back. Unfortunately, he played his senior year, injured a lot, and he just kind of lost that. He lost that desire to play through it at the next level at college. So we didn't end up going to Clarion and playing football, but we were already committed and coming back here, which for the most part, except for wintertime here,
which
is the best thing that ever happened. And I'd be jealous of all you guys, seeing all the tailgate videos and all the stuff you guys are doing year round and all the cool things that go on in Buffalo most of the year. It just, I was jealous. So I really wanted to get back.
No, that's great. Well, we're happy to have you back, man. So did it reinvigorate your fandom coming back here, or was it just kind of there nonstop while you were gone?
Yeah, I would say on some levels, the team being good also reinvigorated my fandom as well. But yeah, sure, coming back and look, I'm very open about it. I don't go to many tailgates and I don't go to games. I am that guy who loves watching the game on my couch. Plus, I do a live show after every game too, so I have to be home. Yeah. So I really don't party it up much. I regret that part though a lot because I know how much you guys have fun. But yeah, my fandom now is probably higher than it's ever been. And I think maybe my show and having a podcast 5 days a week has something to do with that. And I love the position that people, not just like myself, but other people who have shows like this are in, because you're not working for the Bills. Well, nobody really works for the Bills, but if you're not an accredited media member and you're not sitting in that press box, you got to have a certain level of objectivity when you're watching the games. You can't be a cheerleader, basically, is what I'm saying. I hate that. I don't want that. Like, I want to be passionately happy when the Bills play well, and I want to be, openly devastated and demoralized when a season comes to an end like it did recently, against the Chiefs. And I don't think you really could do that if you're sitting in a press box or you're doing it, on a professional level, so to speak. Yeah,
so I think there's room for both perspectives, right?
Sure, 100%.
And I do love the passion that you bring and the rants that you'll bring to the show and everything. So you've done a lot of interviews. Like you said, you're doing like 5 shows a week.
Yeah.
You do a lot of interviews. You have a lot of people come on. I'll say some of your favorites so that you don't have to like single anybody out and make other people feel bad. But like, what are some of your favorites that you've had besides me?
Besides you? Well, obviously the big one was back in 2018 when I had Adam Schefter on, just because that kind of helped me really get put on the map. But Tim Graham's always one of my favorite guys. Yeah. Just a deep dude. And a lot of these, not that he's not a nice guy, because he absolutely is. But what I will say is, compared to some other sports media people, you better do your homework when you have Tim on. Like, if you go in direction and you ask him stupid questions, he's going to know it, and he's kind of going to flush you out for it a little bit. So I always love talking to Tim Graham. Tyler Dunn, who is a very polarizing figure to many Bills fans, understandably so. But I've known him for a long time, and I just think he's one of the best and most talented people out there. He's always been one of my favorite guests as well. A couple people on the hockey side that maybe you wouldn't expect because they're not the most popular people with a lot of Sabres fans, so to speak, but I've always enjoyed talking to Mike Harrington on the show. He's been really good. And Paul Hamilton, to this day, I say it all the time. Only time I've ever talked to Paul Hamilton once in my life, I had one conversation with him, and he was awesome. It was a great interview. But going back to Daryl Talley, probably my favorite.
Yeah.
I love talking to him. He's just such a real dude, and he's an emotional guy. You know this. You know him very well. He wears his heart on his sleeve. He always has, and he always does. And I'll never forget asking him what his favorite moment of his career was. And I expected him to talk about some big play or something he did. It was the national anthem before the Giant Super Bowl, listening and being there when Whitney Houston was performing. He said that was his the highest moment, his lowest moment is when he left the Bills. Wow. And he meant it, too. Yeah. You could just tell. He wasn't. It wasn't just, coach talk or whatever you want to call it. He was very authentic and he meant it.
Yeah. Just real quick, just to throw a little bit more love on Daryl Talley. That'll be the theme of this episode probably. So going back probably like 8-9 years, I was doing this promotion for 26 shirts and was getting some former players to like sign some 26 shirts, hats, and I was using that just to kind of like fundraise a little bit and everything. And I was working with Janine Talley. Yeah. And she goes, "Oh, Daryl's in town this weekend. He's staying, at this hotel. It's just, I talked to him, just be there at this time and he'll, sign the hat for you, whatever." So I forget the circumstance, but I had my daughters with me who at the time would have been probably 10 and 12, 10 and 13, something like that, little girls, maybe 9 and 11, whatever. And so he came out, we met him in the lobby, and I'm like, "All right, Dad's just got to get this signed, then we'll go do something else." And then he hung out with us in the lobby for like a half hour. I think he said, not disrespectfully at all, but like maybe like 15 words to me. And he spent the entire time talking to my girls. Just like, "Oh yeah, like, what do you guys like as sisters? What do you like?" And like, oh, he's telling them all these stories about how he used to fight with his brothers and all that. And it was funny. So at one point in the conversation, my younger one, she's not as, touchy-feely as my older one is. And she goes, "I just don't like, I don't like it when people hug me. I don't like hugs." And so whatever what she said. So as we're leaving, we're walking to the elevator. I turn around and he comes from behind her. I think he like connected with her a little bit. He gives her this big bear hug from behind. He's like, "I know you don't like hugs, but you're getting a hug." And it was one of those things, it was like the sweetest, moment. It was really cool. Like the guy was like really engaged, with them, and people show your kids attention, and you'll love them. I was already a lifer in terms of love with Daryl Talley anyway, but that just doubled down. There's nothing phony about Daryl or Janine. I'm glad you mentioned her as well. They've been very open and honest about their lives too, and they found hard times, and that's a great thing about them. Bills Mafia and fans and stuff. They've helped pick them up when they needed some help too, just like Daryl's helped so many people through the years, so many appearances, so many things that he's done as well. So it's kind of like a two-way relationship between the Talleys and fans, and that's one of the things I love about them. Yeah, he's a true blessing to the fandom. Sure. All right, so one of the things that you do is the chicken wing reviews. You have a lot of opinions on chicken wings, and a lot of times when you talk sports, Del, everyone agrees with you. You're going to talk about Josh Allen being great. Well, yeah, he is. Everyone agrees with that. I start throwing wing takes at you. Everyone's got an opinion on a place. You know what I mean? Everyone's got a favorite place. Everyone's got an underrated place. Everyone's got an overrated place. And they're almost never the same because it's just such food, just like music is just so completely objective. And it's a lot of fun to do. I like doing wing reviews more than I like doing sports shows. Yeah. It's funny. Like, it's funny you say that. Like, everybody knows me as like the Bills fan. Obviously, I love the Bills with every fiber. But give me superhero comics and movies like any day of the week, right? Like, it's like there are layers to us, right? Yeah, absolutely. What's your top? Let's do a power ranking real quick. Top 3 wing places in Buffalo. Start with 3. Go from number 3 and go up to number 1. Can I go 4 to 1? Because I actually have tiers. I will allow it. All right, I'll go 4 to 1 because there's 4 that I got in one tier, and then I got a next group after that. 4 Sunny Reds, Lackawanna. It's minutes away from Armark Stadium. They got incredible wings, and a lot of people know about them. They're starting to become popular though, but as recently as maybe a year or so ago, nobody even knew about them. I've never been. I've heard of them though. I probably saw you tweet about it. Yeah, Adolph's
in the old First Ward, which is just such a Buffalo. Like, you want to let people know about Buffalo. You want to show people Buffalo. Beyond the wings, a bar like Adolph's is the perfect place to take somebody. And the wings are incredible there. Bar-Bill, which I know, I used to push back on this because everybody recommends Bar-Bill. Like, anyone who's coming to the city, Bar-Bill's the new Anchor Bar in Duff's in terms of popularity. You know what I mean? Like, those places used to be. But it lives up to it. So you got to give them their flowers. They're incredible. And then for me, number one, without question, is 911 Tavern. And we talked about this before. We talked about that before the show. Everything about that place kind of sucks until you get the food. Not that the people there suck. They don't suck. But just being a small place, cash only, no reservations, limited tables. It's like hitting the lottery sometimes to being able to even sit down there and eat. You never know when they're going to be open. They don't tell you when they're not going to be open. It's kind of like a game there to be able to get wings. But when you do, there's nobody, to me, that's better than them. Yeah, I had those for the first time a few months back with some of the Cover One guys. And I'd never been. And I never take pictures of food. I shouldn't say never, but I rarely do. But now and then, like, a spread of wings will come out. I'm like, I gotta get a picture of this. Like, the presentation. I'm like, if these taste half as good as the presentation of these wings, and they did. There's no gimmicks with that place. Like, so many places have so many flavors. You go to 911, it's medium, it's hot, or go away. Go away. Yeah, exactly. It's literally all they have. Yeah, I love it. All right, so as we kind of start to wrap up this episode. If you could describe being a Bills fan, you get one word. What's the word you're using? It's a good question. Passionate. It might not be the best word, but definitely there's a passion to it beyond just the football part. Like, the football part is the football part, but there's a connection to being a Bills fan that I don't think a lot of other fan bases can begin to understand. I'll tell you quickly, when I was in Florida, nothing against Florida sports fans, like Tampa Bay fans. Like, I was surrounded by Tampa fans. And they'd wear the jerseys, the hats, the shirts, just like we do. But they'd go, they play, they'd lose, they'd be over it in 5 seconds. It was just such a small fragment of their life compared to most Buffalo fans anyway, and how we live and die with our football team every week. The passion level here. And you don't realize it until you start to spend time around other fan bases. That's when you realize how strong the connection is and how deep the passion is between fans in this team here in Buffalo. Yeah, the Bucks drop a game and they're like, I guess I'll go to the beach. Nobody cares. There was a game on, I was at a diner and the game was on and the Tampa would score a touchdown and you'd hear a couple faint claps in the background. I swear to you, it was absolutely insane. And this is like only 10, 15 miles from Raymond James Stadium. I'm like, you guys, that's crazy. Yeah, that's, we're definitely, I guess passionate is a pretty good word to use, actually. Crazy, too. Crazy, yep. Easily offended, if we can mash that into one word. Yeah, for sure. Easily offended, if you can mash it into one word, triggered. Definitely. Yeah. Okay, and then last question. If you have some advice to give to someone who is new to Bills fandom, whether it's a bandwagoner who loves Josh Allen and now is buying red, white, and blue, or maybe better said, more Buffalo-ish, a young kid growing up who's like starting to really pay attention to the games. His parents' fandom, her parents' fandom is becoming their own. What's the advice you're gonna give them? Do all the things beyond just watching the team play, obviously, and rooting for the team. Do all the things. There's so many things during the season that go on: rallies, parties, events. You put a lot of stuff together. If you're old enough, obviously, you can go to some of the bar places and stuff like that. Get to know a lot. It's almost like a reality TV show, Bills Mafia, with so many characters that people know and recognize. You guys walk down the street. I know we've had conversations about this. How you had to get used to people recognizing you a lot more now through the years and stuff like that. But it's almost like some of you guys and girls are like characters. You know what I mean? People know, like I know this person. But doing all the things beyond just the football itself, there's just so much there to be had, so much fun to be had, so many people that you get an opportunity to meet and develop relationships with. And to me, that's the best part about Bills Mafia. Honestly, the football team, that goes without saying, but it's truly the relationships and the connections that you develop. The risk of being corny, people got your back. You know, I know, like in my heart right now, if something were to happen to me or my family and I ever needed to have a fundraiser or, you know, a benefit party at some hall in West Seneca or something, and I reach out for help, Bills Mafia is going to show out.
Yep,
and
absolutely.
It's like that with so many people. So just do all the things. If you're a young kid, go to all the family-oriented events that you possibly can and just get involved, because it's more than just the actual 3 hours of football each week.
Oh, it's a lifestyle, right?
Yeah,
it's
it truly
culture.
is.
Yeah.
It truly is.
Awesome. Well, Pat Moran, Talking Buffalo Podcast, thank you so much for joining me today. And I'm looking forward to the next episode that you drop on your feed. I always appreciate it.
I appreciate you, man. This is it's a lot of fun.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Go Bills.